The Forbidden Knowledge Accord. Chapter 2. The emblem of the World Council gleamed from every screen on Earth. It was a symbol of hope, reason, and thankfully, leadership guided not by greed or ego, but by intellect and moral resolve. In the age of ecological collapse and societal fracture, the Council stood as the last bastion of global unity. Comprised of some of the greatest minds ever assembled, its authority stretched beyond borders and political agendas. When they spoke, the world listened. Today, the world would hear something it had never heard before. A live broadcast had been arranged, simultaneously translated into 112 languages, transmitted across satellites, local feeds, and emergency channels. It was historic, urgent, and potentially unsettling. The Council had called it a planetary disclosure event. Inside the sleek Council Hall in Geneva, the atmosphere was taut. Behind the podium stood the President of the World Council, a calm man with silvered temples and a voice that carried like a gentle drumbeat. "In our quest to protect and heal our world," he began, "we have uncovered information that some might find upsetting. We have always committed ourselves to honest, transparent communication. Dr. Melissa Sampson and her committed team have uncovered information that can help us speed up our recovery. The knowledge she is about to relay is factual and provable. These are not theories, conjectures, or pseudoscience. What she is here today to tell us about is only a small portion of the knowledge that has been accumulated. We have sorted out the information that will help us with our mission. The total sum of this knowledge will not be suppressed. When we get all the basis for interpretation solved, our finds will be made available to scholars around the world." He paused. "Dr. Sampson." Melissa stepped forward into the spotlight. Clean lines of fatigue traced beneath her eyes, but her posture was unwavering. The weight of what she carried was immense. She took a moment to scan the audience before nodding slightly to the Council's media director. A large translucent screen behind her came to life, casting images of excavation sites, ancient stone chambers, and unearthed crystalline fragments glowing faintly in the dust. "My name is Dr. Melissa Sampson. I'm an archaeologist by training, but after this journey, I feel more like a translator between two worlds. The world we thought we knew, and the world that was." She gestured toward the images behind her. "This was our mission, to investigate linguistic, architectural, and archaeological anomalies from the late pre-cataclysmic era. What we found, however, was not anomaly, it was origin." Her voice remained composed as she introduced her team one by one. Dr. Noah Parker, historical linguist; Dr. Lang Lee, comparative religion scholar; Jason Jones, engineer and systems theorist. "We have discovered that the human race was actually engineered by aliens to serve as a labor pool. As humans evolved, religion and gods were established to control people. The civilizations on Earth date back much further than we ever imagined. We are actually the fourth civilization to occupy our planet. In many ways, we are the most primitive. Many lost technologies have been made known to us: medical knowledge, power generation, environmental controls, even the true origin of the Moon, which is an artificial satellite that was positioned to temper the climate of the Earth and make it more supportive of the blooming of life. Pure, clean water can be available anywhere on Earth to drink and water crops." Then came the fracture line in her speech, deliberate and firm. "We encountered resistance, intense resistance, from multiple nations, specifically the United States and Egypt. Their governments, or rather their corporate backers who control them, tried to prevent this information from seeing the light of day, because what we've found threatens to do something radical, liberating the world from manufactured dependency. Dependency on oil, on energy monopolies, famine, drought, pandemics, and institutional control of knowledge. The governments and corporations have known some of what we now know, but have kept this knowledge hidden. The welfare of mankind and the Earth has been sacrificed for greed. But this time is about to end." A murmur spread through the hall. Melissa let it settle before stepping aside. "Dr. Lang Lee, Lang Li was quiet, dignified. Her voice, soft and melodic, had a way of making even the hardest truths feel contemplative. Religion, she said, is often seen as a search for meaning, but it has also been used to assign meaning where control was needed. Our research uncovered progression maps, carved into stone, not paper, documenting how belief systems evolved, not evolved organically, but by design. She paused to let the words resonate. These systems were engineered, split and reshaped across regions and centuries to manage growing human populations after the Great Flood, an event that did occur roughly 12,800 years ago, caused by the misuse of planetary energy systems by a civilization we now know as Atlantis. The hall remained silent. Lang continued, mythologies like the thunderbolts of Zeus or the battles of the gods in Vedic texts, these were not divine metaphors. They were historical records. The gods were advanced beings, alien, fighting proxy wars for control of the earth and its resources. Places like Mount Olympus were not metaphorical heavens, but remote, cloaked bases from which they ruled. The imagery shifted behind her, side-by-side depictions of Mesoamerican Hindu and Greco-Roman gods wielding similar weapons, then a global map showing those myth origins overlapping precisely. In short, religion was created to control the masses and explain away technology that was beyond understanding. Over the centuries, religion has been added to and changed to satisfy the needs of the authorities of the time. The Roman Catholic Church created, used, and changed religious beliefs to accumulate wealth and power. Then came Dr. Parker, tall, calm, with the cadence of a patient teacher. All human languages, he said, derive from one source, a root language that did not evolve over millennia but appeared in full form almost overnight. This language was taught. Our translation of ancient glyphs found beneath the Sphinx confirms it. We now have evidence of a phonetic root structure embedded in all modern speech systems. And the distortions in history, they weren't accidental. They were introduced, whether through colonial rewriting, cultural reshaping, or simple misinterpretation. He highlighted glyphs on screen, flipping from Phoenician to Sanskrit to Mayan. The dates are wrong. The meanings are wrong. Our timelines have been warped by mistranslation and suppression, but the truth is intact, preserved in stone. He stepped back. The lights dimmed slightly. Then came Jason Jones. No lab coat, no doctorate, just jeans, a black utility vest, and a wild gleam in his eye. He walked slowly to center stage. "I'm not a doctor," he began. "I'm an engineer, and no other engineer on Earth can tell you what I'm about to show you." He touched a tablet, and behind him a rotating 3D model of the Great Pyramid appeared. This was never a tomb. It's not even Egyptian in origin. The casing stones, the alignments, the interior resonance chambers, they all point to one thing: energy. The pyramid at Giza predates the entire Egyptian civilization. It and the Sphinx were there long before the sands that surround them today. Our research shows that the pyramid sits on top of granite pillars about 300 feet deep, on bedrock that is surrounded by an underground lake. He moved his hand, and the image zoomed into the king's chamber. The Earth is a spinning electromagnetic generator. Nikola Tesla knew this. The ancients knew this. The pyramid is a power plant, one of 4 power generators that redirect power created by the Earth. The others are in Central America and Asia. The main generator is located beneath the ice in Antarctica. Megalithic sites around the globe? They're relay stations. Images flicked behind him. Stonehenge, Teotihuacan, Baalbek. These stations pulled energy from deep within the Earth through massive crystalline caps, quartz, perfectly conductive. When the aliens left, they took the caps. Then came continental drift. The network is misaligned, and with it, tectonic instability increased. Earthquakes, volcanoes, all partially tied to internal energy buildup. He smiled grimly. But now, we know how to fix it. We can repair and refit the generators and relocate relay stations. This will make power available throughout the world free and in abundance, without the need for transmission lines and without the burning of fossil fuels. Even the secrets of levitation by acoustic resonance have been revealed to us. We stand at the dawn of a bright new day. When the transmission stopped, all of mankind stopped and looked at each other. The shock ran deep in everyone for one reason or another. But there were no suicides, no pillaging or murders, not even many arguments or hate. The change was too deeply felt. Only thought remained. The broadcast ended, but the tremors had only begun. It was evening in Geneva, but the impact rippled instantly across every capital on Earth. From secret bunkers beneath skyscrapers to opulent presidential palaces built on centuries of control. Two words echoed through elite circles: contain this. In Washington, D.C., the Pentagon, Sublevel 4, at 3:27 a.m., fluorescent lights hummed above a secure operations table where high-ranking officials had assembled in haste. General Colton's voice cracked like a rifle shot. "This isn't a damn discovery, it's a declaration of war on the world order." He pointed to the looping footage of Dr. Melissa Sampson on a recessed screen. She just told 6 billion people that their governments are lying, that power could be free, and that aliens built the pyramids. How long do you think it takes before the riots start? Secretary of State Wilkins shook her head. There won't be riots. There'll be silence. We've already flagged the footage as AI-generated misinformation. It's being deplatformed. Not fast enough, the general growled. Start deploying counter-narratives, full spectrum, mainstream, academic, social, and prepare containment strategies for the World Council. This goes nuclear if we let it. In Cairo, Egypt, at the presidential residence, 11:12 IMM, President Mahfouz stood on his rooftop terrace, gazing out over the Nile. His hands gripped the stone railing until his knuckles paled. Inside, a high-level emergency meeting was underway. "She said the pyramid is not Egyptian," spat Minister Rashid, pacing like a caged animal. "That it predates our civilization. She dares strip us of our heritage on live television." The Minister of Antiquities stepped forward with a folder in hand. "It's worse. She's right. We've had this data for decades. The carbon erosion on the Sphinx proves her point. The tunnels beneath the pyramid, they do exist." The president turned, face dark. "Then we are left with two choices. Admit we've hidden the greatest secret in human history, or bury the truth so deep it never sees light again." He made his decision. Seal off Giza. Discredit the council. Quietly arrest any local academics who step out of line. In Beijing, China, the Ministry of National Security, 6:04 p.m. In a soundproofed subterranean control room, Minister Zhao reviewed the situation in silence. On the main wall, global media feeds flickered, half in panic, half in blackout. A tech officer spoke cautiously. "The root language claim is spreading on our internal forums. University students are comparing it to eScript, Old Hanzi. Some are beginning to validate it." The minister closed the file in his hands and replied coldly, "Then make them disappear." He turned to his second-in-command. "Launch a coordinated narrative campaign. Label the council's broadcast as psychological warfare, an alien hoax designed to destabilize global unity." "And the council members?" his aide asked. "Shadow their movements, monitor every data node they touch. If they go underground, so do we." Back at the source, the halls of the council were eerily quiet. The grand rotunda that had seen global celebration hours earlier was now on full lockdown. Melissa stood in the secure war room with Langley, Dr. Parker, and Jason Jones. A wall of holoscreens displayed real-time reports, coordinated disinformation campaigns, academic suspensions, internet blackouts, and even death threats. Jason paced, fists clenched. "They're coming after us with everything. It's not just media suppression. They're trying to erase us." Langley read from her tablet. "India, Brazil, Nigeria, all our data drops were deleted within 3 hours. That's not random censorship. That's coordinated international sabotage." Dr. Parker added quietly, "A professor in Munich just vanished. She went public with support for the linguistic data. Now she's gone." Melissa spoke through gritted teeth. They're scared, and they should be. The lie is collapsing, but they'll try to bury it again, brick by brick. Council President Rami entered, voice tight. We've just received word. Our operations in Alexandria, Teotihuacan, and Antarctica have all been flagged. Council transports are being grounded. Research teams detained? Jason scoffed. They waited until the whole world saw the truth, then turned the lights off. Rami placed a folder on the table. Inside, satellite images of Antarctica, a partially exposed geometric structure, glowing faintly through the ice. Our next target can't wait. It's waking up the main generator. Melissa nodded. Then we move now, before they shut the sky. Rami leaned in. You're going off-grid. Full clandestine. We'll cover you from here. Jason grinned. Off-grid's where I do my best work. In Moscow, Russia, Undisclosed Intelligence Facility 205, a former KGB archivist, now aged and brittle, watched the Council's broadcast for the 5th time. He smiled faintly, then reached for a worn leather folder labeled 1917, Tunguska Anomaly. Finally, he whispered in Russian, they've told the world what we always suspected. He picked up a secure phone. Get me the World Council. Tell them, we're listening. While governments scrambled to erase the truth, pockets of awakening had begun, not loud, not violent, but undeniable. A second war was beginning, not fought with bombs or tanks, but with knowledge and silence. The battle for human destiny had shifted underground, and the world, still reeling from revelation, was about to be pulled deeper into the hidden past and the stolen future. The broadcast had cracked the sky open, but for a brief moment, the world held its breath. In the darkened council chamber buried beneath Geneva, 12 of Earth's most powerful minds sat in silence, watching the aftershocks play out across the globe. On the wall-sized screen, satellite feeds stitched together scenes from every continent, peaceful protest in Seoul, candlelight vigils in Nairobi, encrypted message boards lighting up in Istanbul and New Delhi with a single, repeated phrase, "We believe you." Council President Rami stood at the center of the chamber, hands behind his back, posture rigid but resolute. They tried to erase it, he said quietly. But they were too late. The world heard the truth, and more importantly, they felt it. A counselor from Norway leaned forward, her voice clear and unwavering. Then we cannot retreat, not now. Governments are splintering, said another. Old alliances are crumbling. People are asking questions they weren't supposed to ask for another 1,000 years. Rami turned toward the council's circular table. We have a decision to make. Do we back down and let corporate interests rebuild their walls? Or do we finish what we started and tear the curtain down completely? Councillor Anna Krishnan, head of the Global Ethics Division, stood. Truth is a flame. It's already burning. Our choice is whether we stand in its light or run from it. No further words were needed. One by one, the councillors nodded in agreement. It was unanimous. They would authorize full disclosure, not a curated summary, not a politically softened version, the entire archive, raw, undeniable. Later that morning, in an undisclosed safe house on the outskirts of Geneva, the core expedition team gathered to hear the news. They had been relocated in silence, driven up winding roads into a forest thick with snow and shadow. The chalet, built of alpine stone and steel, was invisible to thermal drones and surrounded by signal dampeners. Inside, firelight flickered softly against reinforced walls. Melissa stood at the window, eyes trained on the tree line, mind caught in a storm of anticipation and dread. Behind her, Lang sat on the edge of a leather couch, thumbing through intercepts on a council tablet. Dr. Parker hunched over a terminal, reading reports of suppressed universities and disappearing academics. Jason adjusted a projection globe, realigning the ancient power grid coordinates one more time. The door slid open, nearly silent, and President Rami entered with 2 agents at his back. His expression was sober, but something in his eyes flickered with resolve. The council has voted, he said, You have full authorization." Melissa turned slowly. "Full authorization? For what?" "For everything," he replied. "The language codex, the religious progression charts, the architectural resonance maps, the Atlantis energy grid, the proof beneath the Sphinx, even the footage we recovered from Antarctica." Jason leaned back in his chair. "So, we're really doing it. Worldwide reveal, no filters, no middlemen." "No networks," Rami confirmed. "We'll bypass all of them. We're uploading the raw data to council-controlled satellites and broadcasting it straight to every device with a screen. Tablets, phones, village projectors, emergency displays, every channel." Lang set down her tablet. "We've never pushed a signal that size." "You're not pushing it alone," Rami said. "We've reactivated the Borealis array in Iceland. It was built to coordinate climate restoration drones, but it'll do just fine as a transmission relay." Dr. Parker looked up from his terminal. "What's the timetable?" 36 hours, Rami said. "That's how long we have to finalize the material, optimize translations, and prep the delivery systems." Melissa crossed the room. "And what happens after the world sees it?" Rami met her gaze. "Then it's no longer a question of what happens. It becomes a question of who has the courage to live in a new world." 36 hours later, beneath the aurora-filled skies of northern Iceland, the Borealis array stood like a blade of glass embedded in the glacier. Sleek and monolithic, it glowed faintly from within as systems activated one by one. The wind screamed outside, but inside the main transmission chamber, the atmosphere was reverent. The team assembled around the core console. On a central screen, the final program read, "Global Transmission Operation Unveil. Content verified, historical artifacts, visual archives, linguistic proofs, religious development records, energy grid maps, root language codex. Translation active 117 languages. Projected reach 92% of Earth-connected devices." Jason tapped in the final security protocol. "Relay nodes are hot, signal redundancy locked, it's now or never." Lang fine-tuned the auto-translation matrix, her fingers moving quickly but precisely. "Content sequencing confirmed, no edits, no interruptions." Melissa stood at the activation pad, her hand hovered over the biometric scanner. On the wall-size screen, ancient symbols flickered, glyphs once buried beneath the sands, now ready to speak again. "This isn't just data," she whispered. "This is our birthright." She pressed her palm to the scanner, a low hum built into a crescendo as the relay fired. Around the world, screens flickered to life in every time zone, in every language. Crystalline footage from the vault beneath the Sphinx, aerial imagery of Atlantis ruins deep under ocean's sediment. Rotating 3D scans of the Great Pyramid's resonance chambers. Side-by-side religious timelines, coded, mapped, confirmed. The root language tree, unbroken and authenticated. Architectural schematics once thought impossible. The truth had been set free. In the slums of Dhaka, a teenage girl watched from her family's only device and wept. In a library in Buenos Aires, a retired priest took off his glasses and smiled through tears. In a Tokyo high-rise, a robotics engineer whispered, "I knew it! I knew it!" And in New York, a petroleum CEO watched his stock ticker nosedive and shouted into a phone that no longer answered. The council had spoken, the veil had been torn, no more secrets, no more lies. Humanity now stood shocked, shaken, and reborn, at the edge of a new era. And in Russia, a place they had not hoped to penetrate, latched onto their signal, the Russian president and his staff sat. "We have opened this communication to all our people. We hope for a better future. We are listening." The world had seen the data. They had read the translations, watched the vault footage, listened to the testimonies, but still the skeptics clung to the edge. It was one thing to speak truth, another to show it. That was the plan now. Proof, not buried in stone or encrypted files, but alive, functional, real. 4 days after the global broadcast, the World Council summoned an emergency summit in Oslo, a neutral ground chosen for both its political safety and logistical convenience. Delegates from 72 nations arrived under heavy surveillance and diplomatic strain. Protesters and supporters swarmed outside the security perimeter, waving signs that read, "Open the vaults, energy belongs to all," and "We remember Atlantis." Inside the newly constructed climate dome, the demonstration chamber was sealed tight. Jason Jones stood at the center, surrounded by equipment unlike anything the public had ever seen. A reconstructed energy column built from quarried granite, conductive quartz fragments, and a gold-lined emitter core. It stood just over 3 meters tall, rough, primitive to the eye but humming with latent potential. What looked like an ancient totem was, in truth, a functioning component of an Earth-aligned energy relay. Banks of cameras framed the circle. Live stream feeds had been enabled. Over 2 billion people were watching. Jason glanced over at Melissa, who stood beside Lang, Parker, and a cluster of council scientists. Melissa gave a single nod. Jason turned to the audience and cleared his throat. "I'm not here to give a speech," he said. "I'm an engineer. My job isn't to convince you. My job is to build." He walked to the base of the reconstructed array and tapped a control tablet. "This device," he continued, "is built using designs reverse-engineered from structures found in Egypt, Central America, and beneath the Antarctic ice. It doesn't burn anything. It doesn't rely on transmission lines. It draws power directly from the Earth's geomagnetic field." Skeptic murmurs rippled through the crowd. The cameras zoomed in. "Watch." He pressed the sequence. A deep, resonant tone pulsed from within the stone column. The quartz ring embedded at the top began to glow, first dimly, then with a steadily building pulse of golden blue light. The floor beneath it vibrated gently. No heat, no combustion, no exhaust. Just pure, resonant energy. Above the structure, a levitation platform, little more than a disk of copper, stone, and resonant crystal, rose into the air and held, motionless. The audience gasped. Jason tapped again. A secondary unit powered on. The light from the first relay wirelessly transferred to the second, then the third, each amplifying the original signal. On an overhead monitor, the energy output was tracked in real time, stable, clean, and free. Not a prototype, a proof. Lang stepped forward. The ancient world didn't collapse because it lacked intelligence. It collapsed because it was silenced. This, she gestured to the glowing array, is what they tried to erase. Melissa addressed the cameras directly. "This isn't just about energy. It's about liberation. Every human being deserves access to clean power, clean water, and knowledge that has been hidden for millennia. What you see here today isn't fiction, it's inheritance." Dr. Parker added quietly, "We're not reclaiming the past, we're finally stepping into it." The chamber remained silent. Then, slowly, applause began. From one corner, then another. Then it spread, not thunderous, not explosive, but real. In that moment, the wall of doubt began to crack. Around the world, the demonstration was replayed in classrooms, in government offices, in underground networks. For some, it was proof. For others, it was treason. But for millions, it was hope. Later that night, as the demonstration site was secured and the equipment packed for study, Jason lingered behind. He stared at the still glowing array and whispered to himself, "They had it all figured out. And they gave it up." He looked out across the snow-covered hills of Norway. But this time, we won't. The world had seen, and the world was reacting. In the first 24 hours after the broadcast, nearly half of Earth's connected population had viewed at least part of the transmission. Translated subtitles scrolled across solar-powered projectors in the slums of Lagos. School teachers in Finland played the footage in place of history lessons. Hacktivist groups began mirroring the full archive across decentralized blockchain nodes. The veil of silence had shattered. But the old world hadn't vanished. Not yet. In Washington, sanctions were drafted against the World Council under the pretense of unauthorized interference in sovereign information channels. In London and Riyadh, emergency meetings with fossil fuel conglomerates raged into the early morning, and in Egypt, soldiers with no insignias cordoned off the Great Pyramid, blocking journalists, researchers, and even citizens from coming too close. But all eyes were shifting south toward the one site no government could easily reach. The signal from the Borealis Array had awakened something beneath the ice. Beneath the frozen plateau of East Antarctica, seismographs began reporting irregular pulses. Not tectonic activity, something rhythmic, intentional. Deep below the ancient ice shelf, the largest and oldest generator of the planetary energy grid had begun humming. In a war room beneath the World Council's Zurich branch, the urgency was palpable. Jason Jones tapped furiously at a tactile display, coordinating geothermal readings with the orbital scans. "She's alive," he muttered. "The core system is responding to the resonance. That's not just heat. That's a startup sequence." Melissa hovered nearby, arms crossed. "Do we know how long until it reaches full activation?" Jason shook his head. "Could be days, could be hours. But if someone else gets there first, and they don't understand what they're dealing with," Langley finished the thought quietly, "they could trigger a chain reaction that ruptures the mantle." Council President Ramy entered through a reinforced side corridor. "You need to leave within the hour. The site must be secured. We'll keep the pressure off your back as long as we can, but it won't last." Dr. Parker looked up from his data scrolls. "Is anyone else heading there?" "Yes," Ramy said, "and they're not scientists." He tossed a holopad onto the table. Surveillance footage blinked to life. A private Russian drilling rig loading classified equipment. A Brazilian cargo plane, requisitioned by a private defense contractor, heading south with electromagnetic shielding pods. A convoy marked with the emblem of the International Resource Coalition, preparing for a covert landing near Queen Maud Land. Jason frowned. Mercenaries. Corporate teams. Maybe even black-budget military units. Melissa grabbed her pack. "Then we don't have time for permission." That evening, under cloud cover and silence protocols, the World Council's stealth transport Argo-9 lifted off from a private tundra field in Greenland, heading south, under jamming signals and falsified orbital tracking codes. The team was silent for much of the flight. The weight of what lay ahead pressed against them like the cold already waiting in the ice. Somewhere over the Southern Ocean, Lang finally spoke. "If this generator is damaged." "It won't be," Melissa said flatly. Lang continued anyway. "If it is, we may never get another chance. Not in our lifetime." Jason didn't look up. "We won't let them touch it." The Argo-9 dropped below radar as they neared Antarctica. Ahead of them, wind howled through a ghost-white world that had hidden its greatest secret for over 30,000 years. In the heart of the storm, buried beneath a mile of ice, the gateway to humanity's forgotten birthright had begun to open. And not everyone who arrived would come in peace.